My dad loved the Lord. His dream was always to be a minister, a pastor, since he was a little boy, and he got to live out that calling for the entirety of his life. Growing up, if my brother and I got in trouble, it was typically via Bible verses, is how we were rebuked, so that was very, very on brand. While my dad was at work, he had a seizure, and we didn't really understand why. The doctor couldn't come up with much. They almost just brushed it off, like it wasn't that big of a deal, and that he needed to just, go back to what he was doing beforehand. Just there were enough things inconsistent with my dad's memory and with the way that he was behaving that my parents went back to a different hospital, and it was then that they found a really aggressive brain tumor and brain cancer that had a really low chance of survival. But again, even despite that low chance of survival, I know the God I serve, and the God I serve is a God of healing. He is able to work those big miracles. I'd been praying and praying, and I just knew God was going to use this situation of, this isn't something that's normal, but wow, like it would point back to God and how good he is. And so the day of the surgery, I honestly was anticipating a text or a phone call from my mom saying it was a miracle that the tumor had disappeared, that nobody had ever seen anything like it. And so the day of the surgery came, and I was waiting for the call, and it never came. Instead, my dad entered an 8-hour surgery. And I sure remember being so confused. Like, I knew God could heal him, and I knew God was capable of this, but why wasn't he choosing that when I did have the faith? The tumor kept growing. He did radiation and chemo and several other treatments, and nothing really worked. It just continued to grow, and he continued to deteriorate. But through it all, we kept praying, praying that God would work a miracle, that there would be this miraculous turn of events where my dad's life would be saved from this sickness. And so when I was praying, I heard the Lord tell me to change my prayer. And instead of praying for healing, I now needed to pray for my mom, my brother, and myself, that we would learn to be okay in a world without my dad. And it was the most agonizing prayer I've ever had to pray. And so in October of that year, my dad did pass away and go to be with the Lord in heaven. And while that's not the way I would have written it myself, and that's not the way I would have had this story end, I'm still able to know that God is still good, not because of healing he did or did not bring, and not because of circumstances, but because at the end of the day, the Lord brought salvation. And by bringing that salvation, I know that my dad is in heaven for eternity, and that one day I'll also see him again. And so while yes, God is a God of miracles, he's a God of healing, he's a God who cares about each of us deeply, ultimately, the greatest gift that God has ever given us and the greatest miracle ever done is that he gave us salvation.